Welcome, animal lovers. How many times have you wished that your pet could talk? Whether it was because you sensed a problem or that you want an insight or comfort in some way. Today we're going to be discussing animal Reiki with Angela Brown, who is a master Reiki practitioner and also animal communicator. So thank you all for coming. And you're going to love what she says because I fell in love with Angela the moment I met her. And she is a close colleague. But business first. If you want to add a comment, and we're interested in taking questions at the end because I also have a lot of questions for her. You have to click on streamyard.com/. Facebook. I did put it on my Facebook page and it's also in the comment section here. It connects Facebook and also StreamYard, which is the platform I'm using here. So this is also being recorded, broadcasted simultaneously on YouTube as well as Facebook, and it will be recorded so that you can share it with your animal lover friends and listen to Angela again. So I am Sana Carpelati, your quest for self-healing. I'm an energy psychology practitioner and yoga instructor. So I help people relieve stress of life events, such as something acute like an accident or a freak fall, particularly with illnesses and stuff, childhood issues, abuse, uh, breaks in the marital bond, and also inherited trauma and patterning. So you can heal faster with energy psychology approaches. While the focus of my work is to relieve hurts and trauma in people, years ago, it never occurred to me that animals might also benefit from our or require our assistance, or even that they might want to communicate something to it. I also never gave a thought to how keenly aware they are of our states. Then I met Angela Brown. When she told me about this aspect of her work, my ears popped up. And, we all love our animals. And I can tell you, we've had dogs, cats, lizards, fish, even some ecology contained shrimp. Okay. So I got really interested, and it was a very fascinating conversation. But honestly, I never thought I would need her services. We had a cat at that point who was very alive and vital and very connected to us until one day, Shadow changed overnight. He became sulky and sullen and less active and didn't want to be hugged. And I figured it would pass. But then about a week and a half to 10 days, I don't know, something later, I called Angela. So we are going to talk about that at some point in this conversation. But let me introduce Angela first. So Angela is a Reiki master as well as a animal communicator, and she's a solopreneur here in Pittsburgh and does virtual work, which we'll talk about later on. She writes about spirituality and things that are metaphysically related on her Facebook page called Soul Much Better. So she is my friend and colleague. Welcome, Angela.
Thanks, Donna. Thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
I am thrilled about this conversation because I think this is such a good time to have this conversation with you, because if folks are connecting more deeply with their animals. I
Yeah.
hear a lot of the comments that they have in the sessions that I have with folks. And, our lives are filled with so much uncertainty right now.
Mhm.
And with what's happening in the world, and a lot of people are self-examining, And animals come up a lot in my work because they serve as confidants,
Right.
helpers, and animal rescue, like adoptions, are at have spiked this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though they are in our lives, what you bring to the table is a fascinating discussion about how we can communicate more deeply and how we can become more aware of our animals' needs.
Right.
So,
Right.
how many times? So, I know you've trained extensively. So, can you, before we launch into the animal Reiki part, can you
Mhm.
just give us a little snippet of what is Reiki?
Okay. So, yeah, the simplest definition of Reiki is energy healing. Our bodies are made up of energy. And anytime there's a trauma, a repressed emotion, yeah, a health crisis, any of those things can throw the energy field out of balance.
Mhm.
And what Reiki basically does is get that field back in balance. It's a hands-on technique where I'm touching certain areas of the body where I'm led to go and helping to remove blockages, just channeling the energy through the body and helping it unwind all of those things that have accumulated over, the years that you've been alive. So anything traumatic, anything repressed, any kind of illness, anything that can throw the body out of balance, the body can actually be restored to its natural state of balance.
Mhm. So, this energy approach
Yes.
you had been using exclusively on people
Right.
can also be applied to animals. So help us understand, what is animal Reiki and how is it different?
So there are subtle differences. You can do animal Reiki directly on the animal, but also the same with people. You can also do it from a distance, which most animals you have to do from a distance because not very many of them are willing to sit in your lap or sit on a table and have Reiki done. And especially if I go into a group of people or if I go into a shelter, it's, you can't have all those animals around you and have them all want to be there. So it's a way of approaching them that makes them feel calm and makes them feel relaxed. And it's just basically a channeling of energy. I sit in a meditative state and connect with the animal with my mind. I speak to them not by opening my mouth, but with my thoughts. And I transmit messages to them that way. And they, after a while, began to transmit them back.
Okay, so before, and you have an interesting story about how you discovered this.
Yeah.
And I think that we have all had experiences where we have sensed something
Yeah.
about animals. Okay. And sometimes we have, it's obvious. Like
Mhm.
they're not hungry, they're not feeling well, so you take them to the vet and they have an infection. And although you don't know that, there's a movement there that you sense. But other times, or maybe even if we're not feeling well, the dog knows that and he kind of comes up into your lap and cuddles. So before you had this experience, that first experience that you shared with me that you're going to share here in a minute, did you realize that one could use Reiki with animals, or that you as a practitioner could communicate with animals at this deeper level?
I was aware that I could do Reiki on anything. During my training, I was taught that you can do Reiki on animals, that you could do it on, objects. Like if you went to an antique store and bought a necklace and you wanted to clear the energy of that necklace before you bring it home, you could use Reiki on that. You could use Reiki on plants that weren't doing well. You could use Reiki on your food to make sure that the energy was conducive with the energy in your body. There were all these things that we were taught that we could do with Reiki, but I had never done Reiki on anything except a person at that point. And at that point, I did not know that I could communicate telepathically either with animals or with humans.
Okay. So like, what species of animals have you worked with? And are there any that, it doesn't really, that you can't tune into? Maybe not you as a practitioner, but in general.
Mm-hmm. So I've worked on everything from dogs to iguanas so far. So some snakes, some reptiles, turtles, and the most interesting was actually the iguana, because his personality was their personalities come through very strongly if they have a strong personality, and his was just hysterical. It was almost like a cartoon character. But he was fascinating because he was injured in a certain way, and everybody was very concerned about him, and he was not concerned about himself at all. So he was amused that everybody was so worried about his condition when he just felt like, I'm going to be fine.
Wow, fascinating. Okay, so tell us the story. How did you discover this profound gift of your ability to communicate with animals?
Okay, so I was contacted by a friend that I've known for a really long time. He had a Rottweiler, and she was his, best friend. And she was actually his sober dog. He had gotten her after he had gotten out of rehab. So they had been together for a long time, and she wasn't doing well. She had had cancer in one of her paws, and that tumor was removed. And now she was growing. She had a growth about the size of a walnut on her jaw. And he was really stressed out about it because he didn't know what to do. Her prognosis was not good. They said that the cancer would spread. They wanted to cut out that whole area of her jaw, and he was hesitant to do that. Yes. So he called me and said, because I'd been talking to him about Reiki, and he said, do you think you could try to do it on her? I need something, and I'm not comfortable with what they're offering me at the vet. And I thought, well, okay, I'll try. So he came to my house, and we laid her on a big bed on the floor, and she was about 120 pounds. She was a really big Rottweiler. So I laid on the floor with her, and I put my hands on her the way I normally do, because she actually allowed me to do that. And she pulled me into this story. I almost went sort of unconscious. I think I was probably in a sleep state. She pulled me down into this state of mind with her where she was going over their whole life and everything that they had experienced together. And then she was telling me that she trusted him and that he could make any decision about her care that he wanted to, and that she would be okay with it, that she had enjoyed her life, that she had gotten, everything out of it that she wanted to, and that she felt like everything would be okay no matter what he chose to do. So 45 minutes later, after watching like this movie of their life together, and I'm crying, and I wake up and I look behind me, and my friend had been sitting there waiting for us to get done. And he was crying too, because he had felt that there was something going on there, that she was communicating in some way with him. And he actually felt it in his body. and felt this peace of, knowing that everything was going to be okay and that he could make the decisions that he needed to make and it would all be fine. So that was the first time that I had ever had an experience like that, either with a person or an animal. So really the animal Reiki opened me up to that one incident, opened me up to everything else.
So as you're talking, the
Yes.
question that keeps coming to my mind is, how do you get this information? Do you have images? Do you hear sounds? Is it a visceral sensation? Because I know in my work, there's it's not a cognitive process.
No.
I'm in a deeper state of mind that allows me to stream a consciousness,
Yeah.
what is hidden or not realized. Do you find that it's the same place that you go to internally when you work with people and also pets, and also, I mean, obviously they're not barking. I mean, somebody actually kind of joked and said that to me the other day, and I said, "Well, I don't know. I'll ask her." And I also read a little blog about how sometimes they can lick you, and that there's like an energy there.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, about how you get in touch or in tune with what it is that they want to share.
So the easiest way, I guess, to describe it is that I start out just being quiet with them and just being in the mode of receiving, which just basically means that, any thoughts that come, I just let them go. And I, without speaking through my mouth, again, I say inside of me, I say to them, I'm here for you. I'm here for whatever, if you have a message that you want to get across, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to pass on the message. But sometimes I'll see, like that day with that first incident, I saw a whole movie in front of me. It was like 45 minutes of this movie of their life together. And I could hear, not in the traditional sense, I really don't know how to explain the hearing, but I could hear her almost narrating this whole thing. And sometimes that happens with people too. I think it's pretty similar to the way I get messages from people. Sometimes I'll see things. Sometimes I'll actually see a hand writing something out, and that means, the person needs to write something. Or I'll see things, I'll hear things, I'll feel a sensation in my body. It could be like a painful sensation or just a sensation of coldness, heat, tension.
Right.
So it comes across in all kinds of different ways, but it usually is the same with people as it is with animals.
Well, I'm wondering if it's sort of like hindsight and those nudges that we get in life.
Yes.
It's sometimes we don't have words. There's a sense of something. Sometimes we have a dream. Sometimes we have a premonition of sorts.
Right.
And then we dismiss it or ignore it. And hindsight says, oh, geez, I should have paid attention to myself.
Right.
But this work, what we do is we look at this available information here that is always available through the subconscious mind.
Yes.
So our pets have routines and patterns that we become familiar with.
Yes.
Okay. So what was interesting to me is that, and we can talk about the experience that we had with Shadow, our cat, is that it's not just about their ailments or their struggles, but also I was surprised that they also pick up on our stresses and tensions.
Yes.
Right. I'll just share quickly. Was maybe 2014, and it was the fall. And Shadow, who was pretty frisky and playful, and she was actually kind of a therapy cat. She helped a lot of my clients and would barge into the room where she knew she wasn't allowed on several occasions, and actually provided like a push with some of my clients. And so anyway, she changed overnight, and I didn't make anything too much of it, busy with my work and life and stuff. And then I noticed a couple of days later she was still the same, and then it continued. And as I said at the beginning, when I first met you, I thought, why would I need animal Reiki? Shadow's well, she's doing good. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to call Angela, because if I tried to hug her, she would run away. There was just no connection. She was very detached. So anyway, Angela, you came to the house because at that time you were doing home visits, if possible. So do you remember this situation?
I do.
Share it from your perspective, because obviously you have the training and the certifications.
Yeah. So I remember coming into the house, and I remember her being right there as soon as I walked in the door. And I remember you saying, like, well, that's odd, because you don't usually do that. But what I didn't tell you at that time is that I had, or maybe I did even tell you, I had communicated with her before I got there. And that's usually what I do with animal clients and human clients, is I prepare by asking permission to access their energy field. And because if they refuse, I can't do it. Ethically, I'm not supposed to try to invade their energy field unless they give me permission. So she had given me permission, and she had given me enough of a sense of ease that I felt like, it would be an easy transition for me to come into the house and she would be comfortable. And she was right there as soon as we opened the door, which was hilarious. But
it's almost like she's trusting the process. And because I don't know, go ahead.
Yeah. So she, I remember sitting right there in the doorway on that one step, and immediately just kind of tuning into her and breathing. And she was kind of wandering around. She wouldn't come straight to me. She was just kind of wandering around, and I said, let her wander. And that's when she started to communicate. I could feel that there was some tension in her body, like sort of right in this area, almost the solar plexus area on her. And she started to talk about Julian, and she started to show me the process by which she chose him. She showed me, I don't know if you remember us talking about this, but she showed me you guys going out to this house to get her, and her following Julian through this house until, you kind of looked down and said, Julian, that must be your cat, because, she had chosen him. But she talked about that, and she showed me that, and she showed me that she was feeling sad. I could feel like a grief in her about Julian leaving. He was getting ready, I believe, at that time to leave for college. And she knew that something was going on, but she didn't know what it was. So she was extra stressed because she didn't know what was going on.
Okay. So they also noticed changes in our patterns.
Yes.
In our lives.
Right.
Yeah. So as soon as you said that, it made sense, because as happy as I was for him, there's another part that, that was like, there was a chapter closing. He's growing up, and, he's not going to be here. I don't have to trip over his shoes anymore. Just that whole transition. And I never really thought about shadow being affected. But then, after having that experience with you, I remember, or my childhood dog, when my mother died.
Mhm.
I was 13. We had this dog, I think she was like 5 or 6 years old, and she sunk into a depression. Uh,
Right.
didn't eat. She just whined and cried. And a part of me kind of knew, but back in the day, that wasn't something that we would talk about, that our
Right.
kids were having reactions, or, particularly a grief reaction. So, um, after having that session with you, it really expanded my awareness of, of this communication that we have,
Yeah.
and that they also tune in to us too.
Mhm.
They feel us just as we can have a sense of that they may be going through something, or offering us something, such as comfort if we're not well.
Right.
So somebody asked on Facebook if you can communicate with a pet after death. Is
Yeah.
that possible?
Yes. And it's the same. I would say you talked earlier about trusting those hunches that you get and those thoughts that you have that you think, oh, that's just a thought or whatever. A lot of times our pets do communicate with us after they've left this physical plane, and we just don't realize that that's what's happening. We'll have a thought about that pet, or their face will come to mind,
Mhm.
and we'll think that that's just us thinking about them. But a lot of the times that's communication. That is a pet coming back to either give you some comfort or to help you remember something about their life that maybe that maybe will help you with whatever you're going through right now. So the way that we can keep in touch with them after they're gone is to just be open to that and trust that any little thing like that, if you saw like a toy of shadows and you suddenly saw her face and you felt something, those are all ways that animals communicate with us after they're gone. So yeah, it's possible and it happens all the time. You just have to remember that that's what's happening and trust that that's what's happening. And you'll see it the more you start to notice it and tell yourself, yes, that's what it is, it'll happen even more often.
Last night, you remember, so I have some photographs that, I got printed or something at CVS. And last night, I get an email from them because I forgot and I didn't pick them up. And that if I didn't come and get them, that they would put them in storage. So I scrolled down, and guess whose picture was there? It was
Right.
Shadow. And I was like, oh my gosh, Shadow? And I sent it to you last night, and I was like, what? She's talking to us? This information needs to go out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So give us some tips.
Okay.
How can we, um, so how can we more deeply understand what our pets are going through, and how can we be more present? I mean, are there some things that obviously, uh, I think pet owners, and you can correct me if this is wrong, because I'm thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking about my experiences with animals that have come into our lives. Is that I think we know more than we realize.
Right.
So how can we tune in and connect more deeply to understand, to not only help our pets but allow them to be present for us too?
Right. So the best thing that we can do is be with our pets without distractions. And that's a really tough thing. But if you notice dogs, cats, they will actually paw at you or snuggle up closer to you or do something to try to get your attention away from your phone, from your iPad, from your computer, because the connection that you have with them, they're very present. And that's why they're so healing, is when you sit next to a pet, they are only focused on you. And how often do you even get that from a spouse or a child or anyone else?
Oh my God.
That's why we love our pets so much, because they give us the purest amount of unconditional love and they give us full presence. So the best thing that we can do for them is to be fully present with them. Put away the electronics, even if it's just for 15 minutes, to just sit there with that pet and have those conversations with your mind and just speak to them the way you would out loud. You can speak to them out loud, but for some reason it's more effective when you're in a relaxed state and you're speaking to them with your mind. If you're just saying internally to them, I love you, everything is fine. If there's something in your life that's changing, like the advice I gave you for Shadow was that you have to speak to her as if she's another one of your children and let her know, Julian's going to college. This is a great thing, but he won't be here as often. And you might have some feelings about that, but everything is okay and you'll see him again. It's just that reassurance, being present with them, reassuring them of things, even especially when they're having health problems, reassuring them that everything is okay and asking them even, what do you want? Is there something I can do for you? And very often you'll be led to an article online, you'll get an email, you'll see something on your social media, and it'll give you those answers as long as you open yourself up to it. And opening yourself up, the first step of that is just being present with them and giving them your full attention.
So if somebody realizes that there's something else that they can't access,
right,
they don't understand, or they just feel that they need some help, you told me that now, you're doing virtual work with animals.
Yes.
Especially, with COVID and so
right.
forth. Can you describe a typical session?
Yeah.
So I know that each animal is unique and the families
right.
are unique in terms of what they present, but you as the practitioner, how do you enter into that experience, and what can the owner and the pet expect from you?
Okay.
Other than honesty and integrity.
Right. Right. Okay, so the first thing is I would do a phone consultation or a Zoom consultation with the pet owner and just get an idea of what kind of issues are going on. I usually ask for a picture. Sometimes I have actually done Zoom calls with animals. I've had the owner, they wanted it that way, and I can do it that way. So you can sit with the animal that way. A lot of them won't sit for that long, but sometimes if you have a cat and you're able to keep them there, that's fine too. But a typical session is just me actually taking a photo, grabbing a photo from the client, having the conversation with the client, and then going off on my own and doing an actual Reiki session and a contact session with them to see what comes up. And then after that, I get on the phone again with the client a day or two later and give them the messages that I've gotten from the animal, and let them know if there's anything that's showing up in the energy field. Sometimes I can tell if there's an illness, an imbalance. Sometimes I've even seen tumors and things like that. So, so that's basically what it is. It consists of a phone call, if you want a Zoom call and then me going off and kind of doing my thing with the animal and then coming back and giving you an update on everything. And I usually send an email afterwards to a follow-up so you have everything on paper. So you know what happened during that session and everything that needs to be addressed with that animal. It could be anything from, I have animals that have behavior issues, and I'll outline exactly what I think will help the animal with the behavior issue. And then, you have that in the email form.
Okay. So how can people contact you?
They can either email me, and I'm sure we can put the information somewhere. It's Angela at Angela9, the number 9.com, or they can call my cell phone or text my cell phone, and that's 412-805-0199.
Okay.
There's the Facebook page too. There's, occasionally I write about animal Reiki on my Facebook page, which is So Much Better with Angela.
Okay. And of course, you can always contact me.
Yes, absolutely.
And I will get you connected.
Right.
So give us one last tip, or
okay,
maybe just a comment for those who are present here and listening in.
Right.
Some final.
So I guess the best thing that I think the most important message that animals give me for people is that we have to remember that they are sovereign beings. A lot of times we have a tendency to treat them like helpless children in a way, but your animal is a very powerful being who knows what is good for them and knows what they want. And they're able to communicate all of those things to you. And they have personalities, and they want to be a part of your life as much as possible. They want your presence. They want your attention. They want your love. So I would say the best advice is to just acknowledge them as being sovereign and as being worthy of respect, and treating them that way instead of treating them like they want to be treated like animals. Believe it or not, we have a tendency to treat animals like people. And animals really want to be recognized for being animals and for being, special in that way, because it's not the same as being a human. And they enjoy the discipline, dogs especially, of being in a pack, and they understand that better than they understand when you try to get them to be human, they get very confused. It's a very stressful thing for them
to be treated like animals.
And be treated like humans. But the great thing about that is they can communicate just like we do. And so as long as I would say, stay open to them too, treat them as sovereign beings, and keep yourself open and present to them, and you will be able to get all of the answers you need from them.
Well, Angela Brown, this has been very enlightening.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you for having me.
For our listeners, you now have tools and deeper understanding of how important it is to communicate with your pet.
Right.
This has been even more eye-opening for me, and it's a great opportunity to love your pets even more deeply, and to have a regard for them that you may have had, but now you see it in this new perspective, in this new light. So just to summarize, Animal Reiki is a non-invasive energy healing approach.
Right.
Mental, emotional,
right,
spiritual level, just as humans, but in a slightly different way.
Right.
Well, Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll look forward to connecting with you again.
Okay.
So this is Sana Carpelati, your quest for self-healing, or sanacarpelati.com. Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye, Angela.
Bye.